Born to Shine is India's first scholarship event for girl child prodigies in the field of art and culture. It is a flagship CSR program where we work towards providing encouragement and growth opportunities to the girl child prodigies. We want to make sure that the talent of these girls does not go unnoticed. These prodigies have the capability of representing our culture on global stage if they are rightly identified, nurtured and honed with proper guidance. So, Born to Shine brings to you the Knowledge series, where we will be talking to experts from various fields of Indian art and culture. These experts will be sharing their exceptional knowledge of Indian art and sharing their guidance with our child prodigies. With this series, we are sure to answer a lot of your queries about who is a prodigy, how to identify a prodigy, and most importantly, how to nurture a prodigy into shaping them to be the stars that they are.
Welcome to Born to Shine Knowledge series. Hello, I'm Panna, a psychologist. So you might often wonder, who is a child psychologist? A child psychologist is by training a psychologist who specializes in dealing with children. Now, one of the interesting things that I have noticed in my practice as a psychologist is that till very recently, Indian parents would bring their kids in to a child psychologist only and only when they had academic problems. Parents recognize their child's problems only when their marks start dropping. But I have to say that in the past few years of my practice, I have noticed a very heartening trend that parents are coming in for help even for their child's emotional issues. Kids are asking their parents to take them to a therapist or a psychologist for help. And as a professional, it makes me so happy to know that there is very less stigma, or maybe there is a reduction in stigma associated with going to a psychologist in the first place. So yes, there is overall less or maybe a slight reduction in the stigma associated with going to a psychologist or taking your child to a psychologist. However, as a country, as a society and as a world, I think we still have a long way to go in reducing this stigma. I think we all need to remember one thing, that the brain is an organ, and just like all other organs of our body, our brain needs help too. And if our brain needs help, what is wrong with visiting a professional who specializes in behavior, which is associated with your brain in the first place? And it is very important to understand child psychology. As they say, it takes a village to raise a child. The first unit that the child is born into is the family. So the first responsibility of nurturing the child lies with the parents and the immediate family. Then comes school, then comes college, and then society in general. A child is like a wet sponge. They only absorb things around them. It is our responsibility to make sure that we do not give them stuff that they absorb and that they are not capable of absorbing. We might end up affecting them in a wrong way. In terms of child psychology, I also think it is important because while we are growing and our brain is still in a phase where a lot of changes can happen, a lot of changes can be made, that's the best part of our lives where we can make sure that we identify what our comfort zone is, how to step out of that comfort zone, how to make or have better relationships with people around us. In child psychology, we always remember that there are three aspects to a child's development. There is cognitive, there is social, there is emotional as well. And as a psychologist, I need to ensure that the child who is sitting in front of me is getting the maximum amount of stimulation and help in all of these three areas. That's what child psychology is made of. In my experience as a psychologist, I have seen that parents have so many questions about their kids. Parenting is a huge responsibility after all. So let's look at a few Q&A which we can possibly answer today. As I say, the first question here is from Mrs. Sushmita Khote, who is Soumya Khote's mother, and she's from Mumbai. She asks, how do you identify a prodigy? Well, a prodigy is a child definitely below the age of 10 to 15 years who has shown absolute mastery in a certain art form, in math, in science, some area where this child has shown immense talent and a need to want to follow it, to chase it, to nourish it. So to answer your question, a child prodigy is someone who definitely is below the age of 10 to 15 years and has absolutely mastered a certain art form or math or science. But let me tell you that it is not particular or limited to academics, because talent and intelligence are not the same thing. A child can be extremely talented and yet not be an absolute academic success. So this is something we need to remember, that when we're trying to identify a prodigy, we do not necessarily need to look at the IQ score of a child. And now the second question is from Mr. Sunil Tak, who is the father of Miss Saili Tak, and they reside in Pune. So he asks, what is the role of genes in identifying a child prodigy? Is there a genetic boon in this? Well, to be honest, a lot of research does show that genes play a very, very important role in having a certain talent at a certain age, or rather a very early age. However, one must remember that when we are born, we are a product of what happens in the womb. Beyond that, we have a huge, long life to live outside in this world. And most of a child's development happens then, when he gets nurtured by his environment, when she gets praise and encouragement from people around her, when she is motivated to follow whatever she wants to do in her life. So we need to remember that genes may play a very, very small role in finally having what we call as a child prodigy. Moving on to our next question. This question comes from Jitendra Kamat's father, Mr. Narayan Kamat from Bihar. He asks, what is the role of parents in such scenarios? How do you help a child prodigy being a parent? Mr. Kamat, I would like to tell you this. Parenting starts from the moment your child is born. One golden rule that every parent needs to remember, that it is your child's life and not yours to live. You can only guide, you can nurture, you can encourage, but you cannot decide, no parent can decide how the child should shape up or who he or she should be. So the parent's role is to make sure that they are not living vicariously through their children. More often than not, what happens is that following a certain art form or following a certain talent becomes less of the child's dream and more of the parents. And that can immense amount of pressure on the child. And I think children should be thriving and not just surviving, right? Well, the next question is from Saisha Chaudhary's father, Anup Chaudhary. They reside in Delhi. And the parent asks how to strike a balance between exceptionally ambitious parents and the child's willingness. Well, the child's willingness always overrides the parent's ambition. Like I said, you cannot live vicariously through your children. Well, what I mean is, sometimes it is a parent's dream to want to follow a dance form. They couldn't do it, so they encourage their child to do so. Encouragement is fine, but the moment that dance form seems like a chore to the child, seems like a class that the child has to attend, the child is not happy anymore. He's not enjoying the dance form. And remember that dance or any art form is a form of self-expression. If the child isn't happy, how will the child flourish? So then, in a battle between ambitious parents and the child's willingness to pursue something, the child's willingness always wins. So the next question is from Vimal Mahale, father of Ansh Mahale, and they reside in Ranchi. The father asks, can we assume that a child prodigy's IQ level, observation skills and other aspects will further improve in their adulthood? Okay, to answer this question, I need to bust a few myths. Too much information, too much data and too much emphasis has been placed on the term intelligence quotient or IQ. To tell you the truth, IQ is a very broad term, and a child prodigy may be extremely talented in one single form of art, math, like I said before. What we need to understand is when we are talking about a prodigy, we are talking about a child's brain that is developed in a very high sense of the term, in a certain area, in a certain criteria of development. So what happens is this child, say the child loves singing, the child is extremely good at it, the child will have what we call as a rage to master music, a rage to master singing. So while the child is trying to master that skill, the child may not be able to pay an equivalent amount of attention to academics, to marks, to studies. So it's important that parents understand that you cannot expect your child prodigy to be an all-rounder, to be good at this and to be good at that, to be good at everything that they do. More often than not, if they follow a certain talent into adulthood, that aspect of their talent does get developed. And yes, the observation skills of a child prodigy are very unique and high, because research also shows that there are two aspects in a child prodigy's brain that are different from other kids. A, the child prodigy's ability to pay attention to detail is extremely high, and B, the child prodigy's ability to memorize things is also likely to be very good. And yes, these skills would definitely help a child in adulthood as well, isn't it? So the next question is from Mrs. Shashi Tiwari, mother of Akhil Tiwari, and they are from Lucknow. The mother asks, is it overwhelming or disturbing for a child prodigy to be in the limelight at a very small age? To answer your question in just one word, not disturbing maybe, but overwhelming, definitely. Remember that a child's brain is still like wet clay. It is not used to handling social, emotional, academic, life aspects altogether. Or we can take care of that. We can make sure that the child prodigy is put in the limelight only for the time that they are showcasing their talent. Beyond that, if we remember to keep the child away from social media, public platforms, all of these questions that are hurled at them over time that they are not capable of answering, then the child will thrive. Because all the child has to do is go on stage, perform, hone their talent, and beyond that, come home and live the life that a child is normally supposed to live. A life away from the pressures of social media, a life away from the pressures of public opinion. Let the child live their childhood. If as parents we take care of that, if as a society we take care of that, a child prodigy can definitely thrive emotionally as well. The next question is from Runa, who is the mother of Kinjal Jaina, and they are from Chandigarh. She asks that it has been observed often that child prodigies find it difficult to maintain the same level of talent in their adulthood. What could be the reasons behind it? I guess one of the primary reasons is because talent gets replaced with fame, and fame becomes more important over time. Sometimes for the child, and more than that for the parents. Remember that you are calling a child a prodigy because they have shown exceptional talent in a certain field, in a certain art form maybe. However, if enough time is not taken out to hone their talent, and we just keep chasing the fame aspect of it, then yes, your child will lose his or her way. When children are navigating through childhood as well as teenage, they are in a proper identity crisis. They are still trying to find themselves. And they will follow the path that you show them. So if you show them that fame is the only definition that they have, then they will follow that definition and eventually end up unhappy. Most kids who are unable to keep up with their talent in adulthood are those who haven't taken time to practice it, who have forgotten what brought them here in the first place. So yes, to answer your question, a lot of kids when they grow into adulthood cannot maintain the same level of talent. And here's your answer. The next question comes from the mother of Gautam Joshi. Her name is Payal Joshi and they are from Jaipur. She asked, does a child prodigy feel different as compared to other kids of his or her age? Yes, they can feel different for a few reasons. I'll give you an example. I had this one child come into the clinic at this one time, accompanied by his parents. He was 10 years old maybe, 10, 11. And the parents had a huge list of complaints. They said that he's not been performing academically, he's been leaving his papers blank, he gets bored in class. The school was also worried because otherwise the child seemed pretty obedient, calm and reasoned. So we decided, all right, let's assess this child, let's understand what are the reasons for why he is the way he is. On an intellectual functioning test, the child in fact was gifted. Then why was he not performing better in comparison to other kids of his class? A few reasons. A, he was getting bored in that class. He possibly was capable of a higher grade, and what was taught to him in the class was something that he already knew, so he would lose focus. B, and very importantly, which is what I also told these set of parents, that you have to understand that just because your child is exceptionally gifted in a certain area doesn't mean that the child will not have other emotional and social challenges of his age. So it's like a child with an exceptional amount of talent, but the emotional controls of any other 10-year-old around him. And that's quite a difference, right? How is the child supposed to navigate these two aspects in his head? How confused would this child be? This was also conveyed to the school, and eventually the school understood what kind of support could be given to the child, what kind of stimulation can be given to the child so that the child can enjoy his time at school as well. Here's the next question, and it comes from Mrs. Priyanka Singh, mother of Arjun Singh, and they reside in Agra. The mother asks, does a child prodigy have more peer pressure? Does he face peer pressure more often than not? To be honest, all kids face peer pressure, I guess. I mean, adults face peer pressure as well, right? Yes, but it is true more so for kids than for adults, especially when a child is just labeled different by everybody around him or her. The most amount of difficulty that a child has when he or she is growing up is when they cannot fit in. They don't want to feel different. They want to belong to a group. They want to belong to a conversation. They want to belong to a community. They want to walk into a classroom and feel wanted by everybody else. So when a child has an exceptional talent, the kind of attention that a particular child gets from his or her environment can make his friends or peers want to keep him away. Kids can be like that, right? And it is at such times when sometimes kids have come up and told me that they do not want to pursue a certain talent that they have just because they don't want to be different as compared to other kids. I remember that there was this boy, 6-year-old, just 6, who came into the clinic one day with his mother. The mother said that her son has an exceptional talent for playing guitar and has been a part of concerts, has been a part of so many programs. And yes, at age 6, it is an exceptional talent because it is difficult for any 6-year-old to have the dexterity to play guitar at such a young age. But because of this talent, his school, his relatives, his parents, everybody, all elders at home were extremely motivating and encouraging towards him. But it also made him feel very different from other kids in his class because he had to miss some classes to go and participate in a competition or to play for an audience. So this child also told me that when he went and approached his friends, which he usually would, they could keep saying stuff like, "Oh, something's off about you. Something's not right about you. How can you do this at this age? We can't even hold a guitar right." When a 6-year-old goes to a classroom and hears stuff like that from his friends, why wouldn't he want to give his guitar up? And eventually he started getting isolated and alienated from others. One fine day he came home and said, "I don't want to do this anymore." The mother was visibly shocked. She thought he enjoyed it. When I asked the kid what he felt about it, he says, "Yes, I love it, I enjoy it. But I think I want my friends more than I want my guitar." So don't you think then as a society it becomes important for us to educate other kids as well, sensitize other kids as well as to how to make sure that you can make each and every one of your friends feel like one of your own. It is only then that any kind of talent, prodigy or not, can thrive. So the next question is from Mr. Shambhu Kumar Yadav for his son Shiv Kumar Yadav, and they are from Patna. So the father asks, is there any specific training required if a child is already identified as a prodigy? Of course. Prodigies are not just born, that is a myth. Think of it like a mound of clay. You have a beautiful mound of clay with you, larger than what maybe somebody else has, larger than some other child does. And it is your job as a society, as a community, as parents to shape it in a form that gives the best possible results. So yes, training is extremely important because a child prodigy is born with a certain aptitude or a certain inborn ability. Unless that aptitude is nourished, unless that aptitude is shaped, it will not lead anywhere. It is important that during the growing years, the moment you identify that this child has an exceptional talent in a certain art form, the moment you identify that, you start making sure that there are opportunities for training, there are opportunities for nurturance, there are opportunities for growth. You get the right coach, you get the right guidance, you get the right people in the field to help your child perform at a level that he or she is actually capable of performing at. However, it is also important to note, do not overdo the training. Understand that just like we adults get burnt out at work when we have too much to do, too much time that we spend our work in, kids can burn out too. If a child prodigy eventually burns out because of too much training, too much prodding over time, then the child again gives up on that art form, and that's definitely what we don't want. Eventually, as one mother put it, all I want to know is when my child follows a certain talent that he or she is good at, I want to know whether my child is happy at the end of it and whether my child is safe at the end of it. And when I say safety, I don't just mean the physical one, I also mean emotional safety. So let us all remember to nurture, nourish, and empower all the child prodigies around us. So at the end, I would like to talk about this initiative, Born to Shine, where we nurture, where we hone talent, prodigies, girl prodigies from all over the country. We provide scholarships to make sure that their talent does not go unnoticed or does not die out of lack of nurturance. What I truly like about this initiative is that it focuses on the girl child. In a country like ours, where girl children are often neglected, often at the bottom of the hierarchy every time, they deserve that their art forms, their talent, their prodigious talents for that matter, get recognized, get cultivated, get encouraged. What also heartens me is that these girls are going to be provided scholarships over a period of time. It is easy to identify a talent, but it is very difficult to nurture it, to make sure that the child grows over time. And that, I think, is the USP of Born to Shine. Not just identifying talent, but also making sure that we are holding these girl children's hands over time, making sure that we take them where they deserve to be. I really hope that I have been able to answer at least some of your doubts, queries, and questions about what child prodigies are like, who they are, how they feel, how they are made. And I also hope that I've been able to answer the questions related to parents, how they can help their children, how they can make sure that they don't pressure on their child. So I hope that you really like this video. Like, share and subscribe to our YouTube channel Born to Shine for more such videos.